Okay, let's pull out of the parking lot here. Okay, so I'm on the way to the office right now, but I just wanted to talk about a couple of the things that have happened this week. So I do work for an international law firm, and right now the primary project that they have me working on, or that I was brought in to work on, was you can think of it kind of like as essentially Chat GPT, but it's specifically for lawyers. So, you know, that when these lawyers, and it's particularly lawyers that work in like trademarks, patents, that kind of area. So, for companies that are trying to patent new technology or inventions, products, things like that. And so they'll use it for their case research. They'll use it for their case research. They'll use it for figuring out if there's conflicts. Right? They're going to be what's the likelihood that they'll actually be able to patent the idea that they're trying to patent? Because if a company's been refused before in the past, then you're much more likely to be refused for that exact same thing. Naming conflicts, all different kinds of things. So it's a cool tool. It's awesome. And it functions really primarily almost exactly just like ChatGPT. Just for that particular niche, it's got a lot more of the legal documentation context added to it. Right now, we're working on something different. It's very interesting because it was only about a year ago when Claude Code got released. And I remember when Claude Code first came out, right? It was like, oh, this is cool, right? Like you don't gotta, copy and paste your code into ChatGPT anymore. It's able to work with you in the terminal. And there was all of this talk about, agents. Everybody was like, agents, agents, that's gonna be the new flow, and that's going to be the new way that people really interact with AI. So you had like the first implementation of the first layer, which is where Chat GPT, right? What most people are used to using AI for. So you can talk to it, have conversations with it. There were issues where there were context issues where it didn't have real time data. People were able to fix that with web search and setting up RAG pipelines, things of that nature. But then they were like, the next wave is going to be these AI agents, and I'm working on a project like right now in real time. I'm seeing like the kind of like the way that not only a lot of the AI companies are going, but are actually already implementing right now is the end goal is kind of just like full autonomous systems that are set up to be orchestrated really by AI agents. So to give you an idea of what it is that I mean, so imagine if you're building like a software system and for a lawyer specifically, right? And so let's say that when this lawyer has to, submit legal documentation or they have to do research for something, what they would do is they'll go on Google or they'll go on, some kind of particular website. They'll search up, what are the patents for this there or the patents for that. They'll gather all the documentation together, they'll compare it themselves. Well, the first kind of iteration of AI was where you can take that, right? Maybe they'll upload some of their documents into ChatGPT, and then they'll say, "Hey, can you help me figure out what the law says about this particular niche or this particular area?" That's kind of level one, and everybody's doing that right now. What they're having us build out, and what a lot of other companies are building out, are rather than having to have a lawyer sit down and do that manual upload process, find the documents, all of that kind of thing, you just give these AI agents the task or the goal, right? And they can handle it. So imagine instead of that the client coming to this patent lawyer and talking to them about it, saying, "Hey, can you help me do this research to figure out if I can submit this patent or not?" That they just talk to an AI, they tell the AI about it, and then the AI by itself, unprompted and uncontrolled by a user, will go onto the internet, it'll gather up the documents that it needs to, it'll handle the research by itself, whether that means interacting with websites and forums, whether that means downloading different files, whether that means stringing together and kind of synthesizing information across a bunch of different files, databases, systems, running SQL queries, all of those things. And then being able to do actual work. So, like if a report needs to be generated, emails need to be sent out, website forms need to be submitted, handling all of that completely on its own, really without having a human being inside of the loop. The human being would just be there for safety purposes of setting up the system or creating skills, right? So the skill would just be like you can literally have like a markdown file, and you'll lay out in orchestration. So that process that I just laid out just now, I would just lay out like the specific steps inside of a markdown file, and then I would hand that off to the AI agent, and it would just go to town and do what it does. Now, the thing that's been tricky about it because it's really cool watching all of this stuff happen in real time. There's a number of different concerns and things that you got to watch out for, things that you have to fine tune and adjust. But there's a couple of different concerns. The prime one though that we've been trying to figure out, it's not even getting it to do the task because so long as you're setting up a very well defined task and then you kind of architect the system in a proper way. So rather than just trying to hand off a very complex task to a single agent, right? If you could break it down very well and very defined into kind of like subtasks, and then you create agents or skills to handle those specified subtasks, not just the global task, then you'll find that you'll have much more success architecting your kind of AI agent swarm system in that way. The the difficult part though is I'm sure if you've ever used AI or AI agents to try and like vibe code a project before, you'll tell it, hey, remove this button or add this feature. And it'll go and it'll do something completely unprompted that you didn't ask it to do, or it'll hallucinate, but it'll mess something up. Right. I had that problem just like 2, 3 weeks ago where I was working on a project and there was a caching images file inside of Azure Cloud, just one of their web services. And I was like, hey, help me be able to help me, diagnose this issue. I've already looked into it myself a ton and it's really giving me a problem. And so Claude decided, okay, the best way to go ahead and fix this is I'm going to just delete the entire web service, which that's not what I wanted, but it's definitely what it did. So that's what I mean. So like you have to have a human that monitors it to make sure that it doesn't just run off and go crazy and do its own thing in that way. And that's what the primary problem is because to go back to the what we're building for these lawyers, let's say right that you have your own kind of guardrail system, right? So you maybe cut off certain network access or certain tool access from the AI agent so that it can't run amok. Well, the problem is again, it's like a catch 22 because the less access to tools you give it, the less powerful it can be. The more powerful you make the AI agent, the more tools you give it access to, the more damage it can cause, right? So, like, imagine if you deploy an AI agent for the research purposes, right? To your own server that you have. Okay, cool. Well, if you give it network access, you allow it to make network requests, you allow it to write its own, let's say maybe scripts, so that it'll be able to read different kinds of documents like PDF files and Word docs and all kinds of things. Then, how are you going to stop it from writing a script if you give it like code level access to change its own firewall settings inside of that server that you deployed it to, right? Or trying to access, if you give it access to your database that you have in production or even in a separate environment, then, so that you can use like MCP tools and things like that. It's a super common use case. We use it a ton. Then, what stops it from going in and creating bad data or false data, right? It doesn't even have to just delete data. I've seen that happen before, but I mean, there's all kinds of things that it can do that can potentially cause issues. So these are all of the different things that we're having to think through right now is deploying out these agents in such a way that they're still effective for the use case that we're trying to design them for, while at the same time trying to make sure that we're not giving them so much power that they can really cause and wreak havoc or mess up the workflows that these lawyers have. So it's really interesting stuff, and there's not a whole lot of documentation out there that really like lays out all of the different ways that you can do it. I mean, there's like books and stuff like that that are coming out now, but I mean, like a lot of the stuff is really just new and people are figuring it out kind of as they go. So it's very exciting stuff, but it's also very, what's the word for it? Not concerning, but it's tricky. I think tricky would probably be the best way to put it. But it's if you're a developer and you're somebody who works in the software engineering space, I would highly recommend that you learn about agentic development and how to develop AI agents. At first, I thought it was going to be like really complicated and scary, and it's honestly not. I mean, it's very easy to. So you can start with it in AI. in a few minutes. One of the ones I've used a lot is, or the one that we're using for this work project is Anthropic's Agent SDK that they have. I've also used LangChain's Agent SDK that they have in the past before as well. And just play around with things, right? I mean, like fundamentally, I mean, even when you see technologies that have kind of blown up over the past like year or two, like OpenClaw, for instance, really like at a fundamental level, like there's nothing magical about OpenClaw. Really, all that it's doing is that's it. It's just building an AI agent, and the power isn't in OpenClaw itself. The reason why people were tripping out about it is because, well, one was the hype stories, but number two is because if you give it access to tools that are very powerful, right? Like I was seeing people who were letting OpenClaw send messages. But I mean, when you look under the hood, really all it was a CLI tool that's was made in TypeScript actually. And there's like automated testing frameworks that Apple uses in order to be able to test their software that they have. So you can imagine, like, if you were doing this for web browsers, you could use something like Playwright, for instance. But it's just like imagine Playwright, but for Apple software. And then if you just give it access, if you give an AI agent access to it, then yeah, you can automate functions on a MacBook, right? So it's pretty straightforward stuff, but it's fun being able to see the kind of things that you can build with it. So yeah, it's interesting stuff. Highly recommend that you learn about it. See, Ryan. Oh, thank you guys. Hi, I'm from the Philippines. Nice, nice. Yeah, sorry I wasn't able to respond. I was still driving. Literally, I'll show you. Just got here to the office to where I do my work out of. But yeah, so that's actually what I'm going to go work on right now. As soon as I get up there, is one of the lawyers. They're working with a really really big tech company. Pretty much everybody, if you live in the United States, knows what the company is. But again, like they're at. We just had a coworker of ours. He went and presented this to, I think it was Sony, was the one he went to go present it to, and it's like this is the direction it seems like a lot of these companies are trying to go to. So interesting stuff. Highly recommend you learn it.